Hello and welcome to Boyd's Blue Alpine Freeze Dryer channel. Today I'm going to be running my second big batch of actual food instead of candy. We have a whole bunch of frozen chicken and we decided we wanted to go ahead and freeze dry it. So yesterday we boiled about 20 pounds of chicken. Had some whole chickens and some chicken legs and thighs, and we just put them in a big cooker with some onions and some spices. We use this chicken, we normally will boil it and then add it to either chicken soup. My wife makes a really delicious chicken noodle soup, so we use it for that. We'll sometimes just shred it and make chicken tacos or just chicken and rice with gravy or whatever. So we just use the chicken for a lot of different things. So we figured that we could freeze dry some and then just rehydrate it. I haven't tried any freeze dried chicken before, so I'm gonna take one of the, a few of the batches, and we'll maybe add some to some ramen noodles. Maybe we'll add some to some chicken and rice and rehydrate some and try it out and see how we like it compared to the freshly boiled chicken. I'm hoping, from what I understand, it freeze dries really well. It shouldn't be that much different from the fresh cooked chicken, but we will find out. We already boiled the chicken yesterday, so everything I've seen how to do it is just to basically spread out the shredded chicken on the tray. So I'm just going to start filling this out. I do have it set up with a scale, so I'm going to weigh the chicken before and after freeze drying to see how much water is lost, and that'll give us an idea of how much water we need to add based on the weight of the chicken we're trying to rehydrate later on, since this is something I've never done before and I'm not sure what the actual volume of the water, what the water ratio after the dehydrated meat is. So I've just, like I said, we started with about 20 pounds of chicken, and I'm just adding probably about 3 to 5 pounds of the chicken, shredded chicken, to my tray. Spread it out fairly smoothly. We could have pre-frozen this. That would save me a few hours on the freeze dryer if it was pre-frozen, but I'm just going to go ahead and run the full cycle in this case on the freeze dryer. So I'm going to, okay, so about 2.8 pounds or 2.5 pounds there. So stick that in there. 2.5 pounds of chicken on that one. The tray weighed 2 pounds, 3.5 ounces. I'm going to use the recipe settings. Let's go back out here since I missed that step. So first we're just going to the recipes. I want to edit my meat settings. It recommends you do chicken between 600 mTOR and 1200 in the recipe book. It's currently set at 900. I think I'm going to drop, it is using the lower setting of the temperature at 130, between 130 and 140 for chicken is what they recommend. I'm going to drop my mTORs, see how far. I'm going to go down to about 825, so right between 6 and 9. That will increase the amount of time that it runs, but it will also, so it's going to take a little bit longer to run that because of the lower mTOR, so I'm going to increase this to 21 hours. I'm not sure exactly how much time it's going to add. Still freezing for 6 hours. So back into there, save and exit changes. If I do that, it'll save that for my next batch. So if I want to change my recipe for meat later, I can do that too. But right now, that'll save it at 825 at 21 hours. So altogether, I'm looking at 28 hours of dry time. Based on the time of day we are right now, this should finish sometime tomorrow afternoon. It's about 10 in the morning, so this should finish tomorrow at about 2 in the afternoon, 3 in the afternoon, which would be good timing for me to reset it. So hit my meat setting. It's reminding me the time and temperature, everything I set up, which I'm good with. It says ensure that the door is shut and that there's a good seal all the way around the door. And it also says to check to make sure that the vacuum hose is closed. And so I've covered that before, but there's the hose that is showing in the closed position. So make sure that's done and then hit continue. And it starts. Now that my chicken is in the freeze dryer and the freeze dryer is running, I will just clean up the area around the table and wash off my scale and put everything away, and we will check occasionally, make sure everything's working the way it's supposed to over the next 28 hours. Okay, I've now watched the freeze dryer for the last 15-20 minutes. I'm just gonna add some more time just in case it stops while I'm talking. As you can see, the mTOR levels are now sitting right around 205, 204. They haven't changed much in the last 15-20 minutes. It's bounced right around that 204, 205 level. It's definitely not going up. This batch would have been finished around 1:30 this afternoon, but I had an appointment and couldn't get back to it till after 6 p.m. So it sat for about 5 hours. Because I didn't get to see how the mTORs were going for the last half hour, I went ahead and added another 45 minutes to the dry time. It took about 15-20 minutes to get it down to the mTOR of 200, and it has now stayed stable here at the 200, right around 200, 203, 204. It's definitely not going up at all. The reason that's important is as the water sublimates from the food, it goes into the vacuum chamber, which adds moisture to the chamber, and that's going to change the pressure inside the chamber and increase the mTORs. Go from 200 up to 300 or 400, 500, whatever it's going to be. So the more moisture that goes into it, the higher the mTOR level is going to be until that water then freezes to the chamber and is stabilized. Once it all freezes to the chamber, there's no more moisture going into the chamber, and everything stays the same. The mTOR levels will stay right around the 200 level. I think that's the lowest that this vacuum can go, 200 mTORs. So having it sit stable now for the last 10 or 15 minutes, definitely the last 2 minutes I've been talking to you, it stayed right at 203, 204, 205. It's definitely not going up or down significantly. So that indicates to me that all of the water has come out of the chicken and it's now safe to package. If it was still climbing at all, if there was fluctuation of more than 2 or 3 mTOR levels, if it was higher than 220, 230, even anything higher than that, I would basically suspect there's still moisture going into the chamber and it needs more time. If you look down, you'll notice also that it's showing the total amount of time at the bottom, which is now showing 25 hours, 45 minutes. If you remember yesterday, I programmed this to run for 21 hours. And plus 7 hours of dry time, which was 28 hours. That would have finished around 1:30. Like I said, I didn't get to it till 6. I added about another 45 minutes to that time, and you can now see it's been running. The freeze drying time is now showing 25 hours and 45 minutes. 3 hours of that was just sitting time with just the refrigeration unit running to keep all the moisture that had been pulled out during the 21 hours of freeze drying, just keeping that attached to the chambers, or to the side of the chamber, so it didn't reintroduce into the food. So now that I know that the mTOR levels have stayed at 200 for at least 10 or 15 minutes, it's been fairly stable now. I'm confident that all the water has been removed from the chicken, and I will now go ahead and remove it and get it packaged up as quickly as possible so that no moisture will get into the chicken. So I'm going to weigh it and package it, and I will show you how I do that right now. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take out the, now that my cycle's complete, I'm going to go ahead and open the door. So hit the open and then just let the air out of the vacuum, air back into the vacuum chamber. So that lets the air back in. As soon as the air is in the chamber, the door will open up. And set that back in my bucket, and the door opens up because it's done. And now I'll go ahead and just take out the chicken and start basically weighing it and packaging it. So I need to calculate now. I need to figure out how many grams of dried meat is going to equal 1 pound of rehydrated meat based on its original weight going into it. So I'm going to do some calculations now, and then I'll figure out how much meat I need to put in each bag and what will fit in each bag based on the volume. So I will figure that out, and then I'll come back and package these up. So at this point, I've packaged all of the chicken into the package. I've sealed the packets. I've added the oxygen absorber inside the packet, and now I'm just heat sealing the top edge to give it an extra seal to make sure that no moisture ever gets in it, and that will hold it until you know, 20 or 30 years down the road when I'm ready to use it again, or 2 or 3 years down the road, or a month down the road, whatever I want. So I don't know if you can really see that, but you can kind of, it does burn a little, about a 1/4 inch wide seam. It's really hard to see in this lens, but you can kind of maybe see it. But anyway, it just burns a little 1/4 inch edge from the bottom of the blade. There's a plastic blade there, a piece of Teflon coated heating element there on the bottom, and just push them together. That runs the heat across that Mylar and seals it up, gives it a permanent airtight seal on top that I can then use this tab to rip open when it's time to use it. So now I've just got to type up some labels with instructions of how much water needs to be added, how many pounds of rehydrated meat I would get here. This one here is 330 grams, which would be 2 pounds of rehydrated meat. So I've got 2 pounds of chicken in here. It's packed about as much as I could get in this package, 2 pounds. This one was 1.5 pounds of meat rehydrated, so it's 234 grams now, which is about close to about 10 ounces, so a little under a pound of meat, of dried weight, but it'll reproduce 24 ounces of rehydrated chicken. So enough, you know, 1.5 pounds, enough for a good family of 4, you know, a good soup or shredded tacos or whatever. So 1.5 pounds of chicken. I did get a couple of smaller 1 pint size bags, or I guess there's a 1 quart bags, and these also, you can kind of see where I sealed those. You can kind of see it a little better on this one. You can start to see the shine on there where you got the seam, where the press seam is in there. So anyway, these hold about 1/2 pound of meat each, so you know, 80 between 79 and 80 grams, about 155, 160 grams per pound. And so this is about 1/2 pound of meat each. So for just my wife and I, you know, 1/2 pound of meat for a dinner. It's, you know, 1/4 pound of chicken for each of us, or enough for a couple of tacos, or, you know, rice, chicken and rice, whatever you want to use the chicken for. It's just pre-cooked. All you got to do is rehydrate. It takes a few minutes. Chicken rehydrates really quickly. It probably rehydrates in 5 or 10 minutes, just soaking it in warm water, and then you can just cook it with chicken soup. Just add it to soup, and if you just want to make chicken tacos or whatever, just spice it up with the chicken you want. It's already rehydrated, and throw in some spices, make some chicken tacos, whatever you want. But yeah, this is basically a 2-person packet size. I want a few of those for my wife and I do have a little bit left over, enough for about 1/4 pound, maybe 1/2 pound, about 32 grams left that I'm gonna go ahead and experiment with to see how easy it is to rehydrate and figure out how I'm gonna use this. And I'll just use this in the next couple of hours, or next day or so. So I'll just put this in the fridge and use this in the next day or two, just to test out some different experiments and see how well it works rehydrated. Thank you for joining me today, and thank you for finishing this video on freeze-dried chicken. It's actually my second batch of real food. I've done 4 or 5 batches of candy now, but this is my second batch of food. I've done eggs now and chicken. I'm going to do the broth. We got about a gallon and a half. With the 20 pounds of chicken, we ended up with about 2 gallons of chicken broth. I've frozen that, and I'm planning on running that through and dehydrating it down to just a powder, and we'll kind of use that as a dehydrated chicken broth, and we'll see how that works out, to just use the powder, and we'll just re-add water when we're ready to use the broth, and use that either in our soup or wherever you'd use chicken broth. And so we'll just have a powdered broth. There were a few chunks of onions. When we boiled the chicken, we added some onion and a couple of, you know, some garlic and onion and things to kind of flavor the chicken as we cooked it. So there might be a little bit of that left in the broth. Sorry. But yeah, I'm going to freeze dry the chicken broth next, and we'll try to reduce that down to just a powder. It's 90% water, 95% water. So we'll see how that works. I will say that this one, I was kind of not expecting a whole lot of water in there, even though it was boiled chicken. Most of the water was out, and didn't seem to be very much water on the inside of the freezer when it was done. So it worked really well. Should be really good chicken and when we go to use it. And once again, thank you for watching and coming to my channel. If you enjoyed this, please share it with others. And if you know anybody with a Blue Alpine Freeze Dryer, or anybody who's thinking about buying one, please share this with them so they can, you know, if they're trying to decide to buy one, maybe they want to watch this one and see how much quicker this dryer actually does freeze dry compared to some of the old, especially compared to some of the other machines that take 55 hours to freeze dry things like chicken. This was completed in one day, 28 hours. I probably, you know, ran it for 28 hours and took about 32 hours because of the 4-hour gap I had in the middle. But from putting it in the freeze dryer to packaging it was less than 32 hours. And that includes the 4-hour time I didn't need to be here, so I probably could have had it done in 30 hours if I had just got the freeze dryer when it first ended. So I'm really happy with my freeze dryer so far, and hopefully I'll put out a lot more videos. I've got a whole bunch of canned fruit that I need to get rid of, canned vegetables that have been in our storage for a little too long. They're starting to get their expiration date close, so I'm going to freeze dry that and make it into freeze dried fruit and vegetables. So I've got that coming in the future, and for now, chicken broth next, and probably do some more chicken. This worked out so well. I've got another 30 or 40 pounds of chicken in the freezer, so I might boil up some more and do this again soon. So thank you very much for joining me.